the knowledge was not there when I trained, and the knowledge is not there now for most gynecologists. And this is a source of real sadness for me, because balancing hormones and bringing them back to youthful levels creates a whole different life for those people who are able to take it.
נו, מה עכשיו? למה אף אחד לא לימד אותנו על החיים? לא בבית ספר, לא באוניברסיטה, לא בבית ולא באף מסגרת אחרת. לפעמים אני מרגיש שפשוט לא רצו שנדע. בדיוק בגלל זה. אני, דורון אמיתי ליבשטיין, מביא לכם את הפודקאסט נאמר עכשיו, מבית לייף אקדמי. בפודקאסט אני אאמת את המורים והמנהיגים המובילים בעולם עם השאלה של מה עכשיו. אני אביא לכם את הפרקטיקות המדויקות לחיים. חיים של יותר צמיחה, חיים של יותר הגשמה והתפתחות. אז אם גם אתם שואלים, נו, מה עכשיו? הגעתם לפודקאסט הנכון. תקשיבו לשידור ותגלו בעצמכם. Hello, Dr. Prudence, and welcome to the first edition of What's Now, the podcast in English. How are you?
I'm magnificent because I'm in Israel with the huge storms and the beautiful sun and the beach, and with you.
Thank you. So we all know you as the expert for bioidentical hormones, worldwide experts, talking in seminars and working with a lot of clients in LA, but all over the world. And I welcome you here, and I ask you, what's now?
Well, thank you, Duran, and it's really a pleasure to be here talking with you. And indeed, hormones, bioidentical hormones, which are exactly the same hormones that our body makes, are an important tool for me when I work with clients and when I talk to groups. Really, the greater context that I'd like to set this in is what creates happiness? Who am I? To use Ramana Maharshi's question, endless question. And how do we get to where we want to go? Now, you're the creator of a perfect life or an ideal day.
I love this question. So let's start with this question. Who are you? Or who am I in your words?
Yeah. Well, who I am is love. And it can be pure love, passionate love, compassionate love. There are many forms of love. Just like Eskimos have so many names for snow, there are that many names for love. And I'm also an awakening being, where this is very, very important to me, to connect to greater consciousness and greater purpose in life.
You wrote the book, Radiant, Again and Forever. Why again and why forever? Radiant, I understand.
Do you not want to be radiant like a king, strong and courageous and masterful with the word and precise with the direction?
Of course.
That is a radiant king. And who would not really like to maintain and to develop that sense within themselves? And there are many components to radiant. It's just a word that seems to, I'm a Leo, so I like the golden sun. I like beautiful things that shine. And when I talk to people, I see their shining soul.
And so let's talk about Radiant. What's in it? What are the ingredients of Radiant?
So first, to just comment a bit on how I see Radiant. And I first understood this or described this many, many years ago. And it was a little bit like me and my sisters waking up in the morning on a summer's day. Around 7 or 8 or 9, the day was going to be filled with adventure and exploration, great energy, enthusiasm, really this childlike delight at what life is here to give us after deep sleep. So it's a combination of the physical body, mm-hmm. the strength, mm-hmm. the mind, and the emotions, being positive and alert and excited and happy, passionate about what's going to happen. And that's where creativity takes place. So within Radiance, there's tremendous potential and creativity. And then it has to do with, other aspects of the body, too, that we can talk about in a bit. But just this kind of knowing that everything is okay, not thinking about the future, not thinking about the past, but really being immersed in the sunlight or the rain of what is happening. That's a kind of definition of radiance that I have.
That's wonderful. But if we focus on the body and people feel less vitality, no energy, what would you tell him?
Well, energy comes from within. It's a series of reactions, scientific reactions that take place in the body. And in order for us to generate ATP, which is the body's energy, we need a lot of different things. We need hormonal balance. And the older our hormones are, the less energy we have. And it's just science, really. We need good sleep to generate energy. An excellent diet, a diet that is, very rich in greens, fiber, phytonutrients, which are all the miracles that plants contain, the energy that plants contain. We need a certain amount of exercise, smart exercise, not exercise that's going to exhaust and deplete the body, but exercise that actually builds the body, builds the muscles, the bones, and the real energy. So these are all very important aspects of energy.
Let's focus a little bit more on the hormones. So when our hormones are not balanced, we don't have the energy. What specific hormones are connected or related to energy?
Well, all the hormones are connected to energy. And I deal with about 8 or 9 different hormones. The ovarian hormones for women, the testicular hormones for men. So for women, that would be progesterone, testosterone, and estradiol. For men, it's testosterone. And then the thyroid hormones, T3, T4. Those are 2 of the thyroid hormones. Then the adrenal hormones are stress hormones, and they're located right on top of the kidneys, and they make DHEA, cortisol, pregnenolone. Then our pancreas, it's not only for digestion and digestive enzymes, it's very important for that, but also it's important to create insulin and to modulate our sugar. So these are very important. The insulin is a very important hormone. Also, the sunshine hormone, we call it vitamin D3, but it's, as you well know, it's not a vitamin, it's a hormone. That is very, very important to decrease prostate cancer, colon cancer, breast cancer, to prevent flus and colds and COVID, to decrease those, and also to prevent dementia, which is so prevalent in our community.
So what you're saying is that without balancing our hormones, or with low levels of hormones, there is no energy, and where there is no energy, there is no life, no vitality, nothing like. And it happens to everyone. Yes. In the age of 35 to the end of our lives, and we can do something about it. And it's not only the hormones, we will talk about everything, but let's start with the hormones. What can we do about it?
So stress plays an enormous role in hormonal balance. And my goal, as long as it's the goal of the clients also, is to maintain youthful, vital hormones. Because when the hormones become old, skin becomes old, bones become old, digestion becomes imbalanced, dementia and memory problems occur, heart disease, stroke, all the inflammatory diseases and the autoimmunities diseases start to increase. So in order to prevent unhealthy aging and to turn back the clock to more youthful, and this is not a worship of youth, it's just a recognition that a youthful body generally is much healthier than a body that's older. To turn back the clock to a youthful vitality in body is really one of the great advantages that I can help to offer clients, and that science helps to offer women and men alike. So, when you ask which hormones give energy, all of those hormones give energy. For men, the most important energetic hormone is testosterone. It's the wild horse within. It's the directional knowing and courage and muscular strength and, a beautiful body that is held correctly. And it is the love hormone for men, the sexual energy that we have, that men have. Of course, women have it too, but that men have and learn how to use correctly for their highest good. So testosterone prevents dementia, decreases heart disease, decreases arrhythmias. I was just talking with Dr. Morgenthaler a few days ago, asking him about, the heart, and he was saying, he's
the father or the expert in the world for testosterone, and yes,
he taught me how to do
Harvard.
Yes, for Harvard man, he taught me how to do testosterone for men, and it's just the data is so solid as to how good testosterone is for the heart. Another one of my friends is, acquaintances. Actually, I absolutely adore him, but is Dale Bredesen. Now, he's one of the top researchers in Alzheimer's disease in the world. And he's told me over the years, Prudence, testosterone for men's brains, it is critical to help to prevent help to prevent Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease.
Amazing.
Yeah, so very, very critical. In women, the same. Estradiol for women.
Let's talk for a second about testosterone for women, because this is a kind of a secret, because everybody talks about testosterone for men, but women have needs that for vitality, needs that for sex drive. It is important for women as well.
Yes, I'm thinking of the song, It's No Secret. Was a great song. So this should not be a secret. And I have been speaking and talking and fairly preaching, actually, about this for more than 3 decades. Balanced hormones for women, including testosterone.
Is this something that gynecologists or family doctors are checking? Testosterone for women? No. Not at all?
No. Gynecologists don't really check hormones. And I was trained at USC as a gynecologist. And when I went out into private practice, I realized that is fine-tuned in really very high level my surgical skills were, and a lot of my decision-making about regular gynecology. The knowledge was not there when I trained, and the knowledge is not there now for most gynecologists. And this is a source of real sadness for me, because balancing hormones and bringing them back to youthful levels creates a whole different life for those people who are able to take it. And hormones were vilified in 2001, 2002, when the Women's Health Initiative was published. And that was a big study on hormones and women's health. Now, these hormones were done with Premarin, which is pregnant mare's urine, Premarin. And it was the only hormone that was created between around 1944-45. And it was scientists trying to help alleviate symptoms that women had at menopause. And they found that with all the things they experimented with, the urine from pregnant horses seemed to help women. And so this was the gold standard, giving Premarin as an estrogen substitute, or as a pseudoestrogen, a non-bioidentical estrogen. Nobody even knew what really female hormones were at that point. And then giving a kind of progesterone that they thought was the balance of estrogen. And in 2001, they found out that Premarin increased dementia, strokes, heart attacks, and breast cancer. Now, it did help women build their bones back, but this is how I was trained.
So they stopped using Premarin?
No.
They still use it?
Yes, it's probably one of the wider used, medications in the world. But why would we use an old iPhone?
Yeah.
Why would we use old technology?
This is kind of an old technology because it comes from horses instead of bioidentical hormones that are exactly like the hormones that the body creates or manufactures by itself.
Exactly right. So they were trying to emulate or to create similar hormones as women made, but we didn't have the technology. It was really another 20 years before we really had that kind of knowledge, or 15 years.
Just for other people's knowledge, so non-bioidentical hormones are still being made from horses?
Absolutely. It is a huge, huge part of this industry. Now, pharmaceutical companies are very aware of how important bioidentical hormones are, and they do make them. They make a very weak estrogen cream that I feel personally is not going to benefit many people, but they also make the patch, which I frequently use. And the patch is bioidentical estrogen placed in a Band-Aid type patch applied to the skin, and it has a lot of very good uses.
Mm-hmm. There is also the pellets and your cream that are bioidentical.
Absolutely. There are many different methods. For example, for estrogen, when I help women replace their natural estrogen, I have creams, drops, little trokes that you put under the tongue. There's patches, there's pills that I rarely use. I rarely use oral medication for estrogen. There's vaginal rings. So I have so many different tools, and everyone reacts differently to them. But the important thing is do not use the non-bioidentical hormones.
That's very, very important. And you just talked about personalization. Each one needs to learn what works for him. And there is no one medicine for everyone. Mm-hmm. And even the doses are different between one woman to another woman. Yes. And you need to check not only the blood, but also a questionnaire that exactly. Women and men tell you how they feel.
Yes, I think that the symptoms are extremely important. In fact, the Gynecological Medical Board says this is a treatment of symptoms and of building the bones. That's it. That's it. So when we talk about hormones in the United States, we have to say that many studies also suggest and show and prove, frankly, that there's so many other benefits for these hormones. But yes, the symptom relief is very, very important.
Mm-hmm. I think that many people, including many doctors, believe that we are aging and this is nature and we should let nature do its work, means age and die. And I think that recently they called aging one of the disease that exist and there is nothing to do with it. And here you are bringing a new idea that we should not age because of hormones that are becoming less and less in the body. We can bring this bioidentical hormones to the body with the cream and everything that you have just suggested. And by balancing it, we are kind of turning the clock back.
This is exactly right, Daron. Whether it is acupuncture, Ayurveda, whether it is homeopathy, whether it's Western medicine, all these different philosophies in ways of practicing health in the body have a goal of preventing diseases from occurring and then helping to eliminate diseases once they've arisen. So what used to be the disease of the old man? Pneumonia. And men and women died very, very much of pneumonia because there were no antibiotics until 1920, even further than that. Penicillin, sulfa were the first antibiotics. So if someone is told, you have a very bad pneumonia and you can't breathe and you're going to die, let me go. I'm 65 years old. Let nature take its course. And it's like, there's a wise time to say, let nature take its course. And then there is quite a foolish time to say, let nature take its course. For example, my father had a condition of his pancreas, and he had it corrected, and he would have died without correcting it. And he had another 20 years after it was corrected. And it was a little stone blocking the duct to the pancreas. So he was developing pancreatitis. And, why would we let a vital, creative, good human being just say, it's nature's way, or I'm having a heart attack. Okay, that's nature's way.
I agree with you. I wish my father had a defibrillator that could save him. But going back to testosterone for women, without it, what's happening?
Good question. Prudence, I have no sex drive. I have zero sex drive. I don't want to be touched. Prudence, I wake up in the morning. I don't know what I'm supposed to do that day. I feel confusion. I look in the mirror. I think I look horrible. The doctor just told me that I'm losing my bones and I have to go on these medications to build my bones back. And my memory's not so good, and I feel so irritable, and I'm so tired.
So that's only testosterone. What about estrogen? What would they say?
Each hormone has a song, and estrogen is, it's kind of this, this energy shimmering through the body.
No, without estrogen.
Oh, without estrogen?
Yeah.
Oh my God, God save us. Okay, without estrogen, I can't sleep. The jaw is clenched like this. I can't sleep, Prudence. I'm so angry. I'm eating all the time. I've gained 20 kilos. I feel sad. I feel depressed. I want to get divorced. I'm screaming at my children. I have no energy. I don't, Prudence, I don't know who I am anymore.
Wow.
I have no reasons left to live.
And that is menopause. And nobody at medicine describe it as an issue or, treat it as something that is so important. And here we are sitting and talking about it. And you are bringing 30 years of experience of talking to women who had all those symptoms and found a solution with bioidentical hormones. And still, in Israel, less than 1% of the population use it. And there are few doctors that knows a bit to talk about it.
This is how it is worldwide. So I certainly want to single out Israel as a nation that is curious, that cares about its people very, very much, and really want vitality and health for their constituents, for their citizens. So Israel is very open to this method of treatment. And I've been really met with, I would say, a generous listening, whereas in other countries, there is not that listening. For example, in Greece, you cannot buy a single hormone for menopause. There's nothing. There's no patches. There's no creams. There's no pills. There's nothing. And there's progesterone. That's it. So in Israel, these methods, these, tools to replace hormones are widely available. And doctors are learning. It took me several years to learn. Actually, it took me probably 10 years to become much more of a master in my field, because I wasn't taught it in medical school, and it took a lot of research and experimentation, and but I think Israel is open for this. And
you're talking about hormones as the operating system of the body.
Correct. Hormones are our body software.
And probably the kernel or the center is the thyroid. Why it is so important and why so many people have deficiency in thyroid.
Okay. So indeed, it is one of the critical major hormones, and it is misdiagnosed or not even considered about half of the time when women and men go to their doctor saying, I'm tired, my hair is getting thin, I'm losing my hair, my skin is dry, I'm constipated, I'm depressed, I'm feeling down. These are a lot of the symptoms of low thyroid.
And in many cases, they give them pills for depression and anxiety.
Absolutely.
And it does the opposite. They are gaining more weight. And
well, yes, unfortunately, weight gain is quite common with antidepressants. But here's the pearl. You want to get to the core root cause of what the problem actually is. So I strongly recommend checking all the hormones as a first pass through for I'm tired, I'm depressed, I'm gaining weight, my memory's off, I'm developing anxieties, I can't sleep, I'm sweating. That would be the first pass through. Look at the hormones. Just see what they look. Are they youthful? Are they older hormones? Are certain hormones fine and certain hormones deficient? Correct it, see what happens, and of course keep an eye open to the fact that the person who's tired might have a myriad of other diseases. But thyroid is very, very important for the metabolism. So clients will come to me and they'll say, Prudence, I've seen 3 other doctors. Everybody says my thyroid is fine, and I just don't think it's fine. And I check their thyroid, and indeed it is not fine. It is not okay. It is deficient. And we need to look at a number of different components. the thyroid 4 thyroxine, which is thyroxine, the thyroid 3, which is liothyronine. We have to look at reverse T3, which means it's the bound up form of the most important part of thyroid. We also want to see if there are thyroid antibodies present. Does that person have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition of the thyroid? And we also want the questionnaire that you mentioned earlier. A questionnaire is very, very important in terms of identifying, thyroid conditions. Also, doing an exam. How does the skin look? Yeah, the reflexes are critical, Daron. Absolutely critical. And there's a machine called the Thyroflex that actually just calculates the thyroid. Daryl Turner, Dr. Turner created it. And it's a nice way to kind of quantify rather than tapping, tapping to see what the reflexes are. Because the thyroid controls the body's metabolism and it creates positive and happy thoughts. It is very important in terms of your outlook on life and your digestion, really the moisture that you have in your body. Mm-hmm. It beats the heart in a certain way, very important along with the adrenals, along with estrogen.
So let's talk about adrenals. Stress. This is probably the number one cause for 95% of illnesses, disease worldwide.
Absolutely.
And stress is killing our adrenal glands.
Ourselves.
So tell us a little bit about it. I know that you always like to mention Japan with their work disease.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about that, because you've been in Japan, you've seen that culture, and what is it?
There is a name for this disease of stress at work, and people are dying on the streets, dying at work just because of stress. They live a life of stress at work. Mm. They are afraid of what the boss will say, and they don't know how to deal with it. So I understand that you have the ability to balance those adrenal hormones or glands and to bring it back to life.
So as you said, and I want to just repeat it, that stress is a root core cause of 90% of diseases that arise. And that has to do with dementia, strokes, high blood pressure. It has to do with digestion. It has to do with obesity, depression. So stress comes in many forms. It used to be that we had a short-term stress. Boop, we were being attacked. We're no longer being attacked. Stress goes back to normal levels. But in our modern society, there's the stress of keeping up with your phone and your messages, your emails. There's the stress coming from the family as well as work. There's stress coming from, I'm not good enough, all this self-judgment that is constantly going on in our mind, and how we could be better and more productive and more successful and wealthier, and all of these standards that we set for ourselves, which are probably fairly destructive things that we set for ourselves, really create stress. And the stress is unending. It's just unending. And this is what causes so many diseases. So when stress hits the body, boom, it's like I used to box a little bit. It's like boxing and receiving a huge hit. The hormones go up, and those hormones would be DHEA, dihydroepiandrosterone, testosterone, and pregnenolone, which is a mother hormone that gives rise to many other hormones in the body. So it's kind of like when the hormones go up, we feel full of energy, full of confidence. I can do anything. And that's kind of a danger sign. That means the hormones are very, very high. Sometimes people come in and they just talk nonstop. I'm doing it. And this is just great. And we're going to do this. It's like, whoa, okay. These people have very high hormones. And the problem with that is we're using up the adrenal hormones faster, and then they decline, and then they crash. Burnout. We're tired. We're depressed. We lose our hair. We start losing our skin and our muscle mass.
I think that it's very clear that at the beginning of mankind, it was more to help us survive. Mm-hmm. And recently, we're using the same method to deal with being late to a meeting or stuck in traffic. So we think that we are dying, but we are not. But the stress is so high, and those hormones are being used, and then we feel depleted or without energy at all due to stress.
This is very important. And sometimes when the mother is stressed and the baby is in utero, to be cooked, then the baby starts, the baby needs some of the mother's, all of the mother's nutrients basically. And the babies are then born with low adrenals themselves. So these are babies that sometimes fail to thrive. They're young children that have lots of weaknesses and lots of allergies and sensitivities to everything. And building back the adrenals is done through deep sleep and rest, through healthy nutrition, not over-exercising. Exercise should come from healthy adrenals where we have abundant energy. So not over-exercising, smart exercise, and from replacing the adrenal hormones. That would be DHEA, pregnenolone, cortisol. Cortisol, what cortisol says is, life is grand. Aren't you happy? Life is grand. So when people come in and say, oh, Prudence, why me? And they feel victimized by everything. I was late because the traffic wouldn't move and the people, and I know that feeling. We all know that feeling. But when it becomes the operating system of a person, that means they need cortisol. They need their adrenals back as well as the other hormones.
So in order to be very practical, we start with blood work, but you look at the results in a different way. You want people to be on the upper 20%. Why?
There's a huge reference range for hormones. So for example, with the TSH, that's the thyroid brain hormone, which endocrinologists, of which I'm not, follow very, very closely. So it'll be 0.4 to 4.4. Now, I don't know if that reference range seems big to you, but a person functioning at 0.6 or 1 is entirely different than a person who is functioning with a thyroid stimulating hormone at 4.4. So I like that hormone to be in the lower range, let's say 1. Maybe 2 max.
Below 2.
Yes, generally below 2. And then, of course, I look at the symptoms and I look at their body and see what their body is doing. How dry is it? Do they have cracking heels, feet, heels, and many other things that I look at.
So this is the second thing. First, blood work.
Yes.
And you want them to be on the upper or the lower 20%. Yes. It depends on the test. And then you do a questionnaire, like 15 questions for each of the systems in order to identify their symptoms. Because sometimes, as you said, regarding thyroid, the blood work might be wrong.
That is right. So I do look at hormones in other ways aside from blood work. There is a 24-hour urine called the Meridian Valley, and as I mentioned, the Thyroflex. There are other tools that can be bought in very easily to look at hormones. But when I just want to say that for men start losing their testosterone each year from about the age of 40 on. And their hormone testosterone levels can be quite low by the time they are 50, 45. And the more stress they have in their life, the lower their testosterone levels are. So a man who is 52 might come in with a testosterone level of 375 or 400. And that would be the American and the European values. And really what would be an ideal level? 700, 800, even 900. And so you want to find the ideal for each person. Sometimes men feel wonderful at 500 or 600. Generally, that's not an optimal level. And so what I do to find the optimal level for men is I look at their cholesterol, I look at their blood pressure, I look at their sugar levels.
Yeah, I heard you in the past talk about the fact that those levels are being done for older people.
Yes.
And if we want to act, live, feel like 35, we need to look at the top 20% or the lower 20%. Yes. So we will be outperforming.
Out-happing.
Compared to everybody else.
Yeah. I think that is a good kind of basic rule that we want to balance to youthful hormones rather than, hey, I can balance your hormones to an 80-year-old woman. Would that be great?
No.
Yeah. Or, hey, let's be 76 as a male. No, men don't have the really the masculine qualities that are important, including sexual function. So many men are put on Viagra or Cialis for, erectile dysfunction, when really a third to even a little more than a third of all erectile dysfunction is cured by simply testosterone. Then another third of men might, for erectile dysfunction, inability to have an erection, another third might need some Cialis and Viagra. But boy, replace those primary hormones, because it's not just about one part of the body. It's about every cell in the body that has receptors for these hormones. I mean, really, as you said, Daron, this is the body's software. And I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to try working on my computer if the software is corrupted.
Of course. So people are coming to you with pain and feeling victimized by the fact that nobody understood them, that the doctors told them that they are okay, but they don't feel okay. And you balance their hormones. What's now after their hormones are balanced?
That's where things get very interesting. And that's where we intercept. Now, I have to say that I think that you're one of the more knowledgeable people that I've ever talked to in the medical or non-medical field about hormones. You really know so much about this. But that's when it gets interesting. And that's when your field and my field intercept, because it's about well-being, a life well lived, a life of passion, possibility, service, a life of consciousness. And I'd love you to tell me how you think that.
I hear you saying that without this fuel, we will not be able to fulfill our destiny, our purpose, realize our purpose, that we will not be able to live an ideal day without this fuel of hormones, balanced hormones in the body. And I heard you recently talk about organization, that people are less effective, less productive when they are not balancing their hormones.
This is very true. So when you think about the impact of emotional disorder or emotional sadness, anxiety, depression on the productivity of a company, it's enormous. When you take testosterone away from men and they get irritable, depressed, they lose their drive. No, I don't even want to race my car. They really lose their ambition and drive. And I'm not just talking about sexual drive. I'm talking about their drive to create what they want to create in life. So every organization should definitely have their top executives and hopefully everyone's hormones checked to make sure that they have a team that's really going to work for the team and work for the company's best and for their own happiness in life. Happiness and being present and having a mind that works quickly and strategically is critical for organizations.
Let's talk a little bit even bigger in a perspective of worldwide. What needs to happen now in order to help people worldwide to experience hormone balancing and living better life, more vitality, less aging? What needs to happen?
And more peacefulness?
Is it
peacefulness?
knowledge? Is it knowledge? Is it educating the doctors? Would it come from the people themselves that will ask their doctor to focus on their hormones? Is it reasonable to ask my well-being VP at the organization to take care of that? What is the path? How do you see, what is your vision for the world in terms of hormones?
This is a very big question. And there are multiple routes to get to a worldwide peacefulness within, because hormones create a grounded peacefulness and gratitude. I'm happy, thank you. I feel well. I want to help someone else feel well. So I have long wanted to see a subspecialty within gynecology that's for menopause. And in urology, one that specifically, rather than just looks for diseases, looks for wellness. First visit, you check a man's testosterone. That's going to help to make his prostate smaller. That's going to help prevent prostate cancer. So prevention. Now, in gynecology, we have oncology, so we have all the cancers that can arise, and we have infertility. And then I was trained as a general gynecologist with surgery. I would say half of my residency, 3/4 of my residency was acquiring surgical skills and delivery skills, but nothing about hormones. And that's still how it is today. So I would like gynecologists to really be able to spend an extra few years learning about hormones. And it's not difficult, and they can impact every single one of their patients.
This is very painful because today they are against hormones.
Yes.
And they spread this idea that hormones create more cancer when it's not true, when it's only for, those hormones that are created by the companies that are doing it from horses. And the bioidentical hormones does not bring cancer to anyone. The opposite is true. We'll talk about it in a minute. But how can we turn their opinion from being against bioidentical hormones or telling their clients that there is not enough information or research or anything about it? What can we do about it?
Yes. So the research is vast, talking about hormones. And I just want to be clear that 20 years after this first study came out with the pregnant marriage and the Premarin, the 20-year, they got rid of the progesterone, the synthetic Provera progesterone, and they proved very effectively that even Premarin does not increase breast cancer. So compared to women who did not take hormones, Premarin alone, not with the Provera, had a decreased incidence of breast cancer. And it doesn't help the brain like bioidentical hormones or prevent strokes or hypertension. It doesn't really even bring back sexuality very well or get rid of symptoms as well. But it did not increase cancer. It decreased breast cancer. And I think that that's what most gynecologists and people think hormones cause breast cancer. And therefore, I won't prescribe them, and they're dangerous. And if you take them, you're foolish. And that's just not true. There's a wonderful book out. It's called Estrogen Matters. And it's by a big breast oncologist at USC, at Keck School of Medicine, which is my alma mater at University of Southern California. And it's by Avram Blooming, a good Jewish man. Our best doctors seem to be Jewish. And he goes into great detail on how even if women have breast cancer, it's safe to use hormones. So I have a lot of women come to me and say, Prudence, I had breast cancer 10 years ago and I was told I could never have hormones. I'm dying. I am dying. I don't care if I get breast cancer again. Please treat me. So, my answer is hormones do not increase breast cancer. You had it once. I don't know what the possibility of having it again, but I will send you to an oncologist who can analyze all this. And if they say it's safe, I certainly will prescribe it for you.
Mm-hmm. So the opposite is true.
Yes.
In terms of breast cancer and other symptoms like Alzheimer, the hormones will prevent the disease and not create the disease. Let's talk a little bit. We've talked before about Abe Mergenthaler and testosterone for men. Mm-hmm. Men that has the prostate cancer, what they do to them, 99.9% will block the hormones and testosterone, will bring it to zero. And maybe win the cancer, but lose the person because he will not have erection, he will not have bones, he will not have willpower, he will be so...
Soft skin. They become eunuchs.
Mm-hmm.
And, an elderly eunuch is not a vital person. And it doesn't...
While Abraham Morgenthaler is saying that give them testosterone. Again, every person is a different story, and we need to examine every person who had prostate cancer and give him his own solution. But what he's saying is if you give them testosterone, at the beginning it might pick the cancer and then it goes down, but they stay alive with vitality, yes, with all they need to continue with happy lives.
Let's be very clear. It decreases the incidence of prostate cancer. So at one point, it was thought that testosterone was the fuel that fed prostate cancer, meaning it caused prostate cancer. And Dr. Morgenthaler was instrumental in terms of showing that the opposite is true. This is with hundreds of thousands of men. And not only does it help to prevent prostate cancer, but he's doing an ongoing study, which I actually need to ask him about, of men who have stage 4 prostate cancer. Now, those men, you can't get rid of the prostate cancer, even with medications, but those men are doing very well in the study. And they said, no, I want to try testosterone. I want to, they're doing very well in the study with not an increased incidence of spread. I don't know what percentage, but quite a big percentage actually doing better. Now, that's his data. Please look him up. He's wonderful.
Exactly.
Morgenthaler.
So hormones helps prevent disease, and hormones helps you to live full life, happy life, vitality, youth, and...
Yes. So when our hormones decline, in women, they start to decline around 35, and at the latest around 40. And I'm talking about quite a dramatic decrease in hormones. That's called perimenopause, when the hormone levels of the ovaries are lower than normal, but not completely gone, which is menopause. Menopause is 44 to 48 or 49. So when we lose our hormones, we lose our body's operating system, and the body becomes weak. The bones, the skin, the collagen, we lose our beauty. We lose our ability to recall words. So many women tell me, Prudence, I just can't remember the words. I can't remember names. And I think I'm becoming demented. It's like, well, let's see once we get some estrogen in you. Mm-hmm. And for men, let's see how that is corrects.
So we can all be balanced.
Look, I have helped 30 or 40,000 people at this point to balance their hormones. And there's some very difficult cases. And those are women and men who have a lot of other conditions going along. For example, they have chronic fatigue. They have Lyme disease that, of course, I refer to other people for those. And when I say that we can maintain and bring our vitality back to 35, not for everyone. Mm-hmm. Not for everyone, but even this handful, and it's kind of a handful for me, maybe 20 patients that have been difficult over the years. Yeah. It's like, well, should we bring you off of hormones? Oh, no, Prudence, Dr. Prudence, no, don't take me off of hormones. This allows me to function even though I'm not.
I work with a lot of mentors and some doctors, and usually they don't walk their talk. They have some issues with what they are teaching or what they are preaching. But you are a role model of using the hormones, and you do it for yourself for many years. Yes. And people can't believe your age because you are using the hormones. You are really doing what you are preaching others to do.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And it is something that I consider part of integrity. Mm-hmm. Integrity is the strength, the inner strength. And of course I want to balance my hormones. Of course I want to, because that is the easiest, quickest, fastest way to get rid of not only symptoms, but future diseases. And what you said this before, but I just want to say it again.
I'll give you an example. A lot of people are talking about doctors that will never put radiation or chemo on their body, but they will advise others to do that.
I see what you're saying.
And in your case, what you tell people to take, you take.
Absolutely.
And you see the advantage in your life.
Enormously. I think the menopausal state is a death state. And I've thought about this at various junctures of my career. And it's kind of like we can't reproduce. And just like animals that can't reproduce, they become weak. They're eaten by the lions. And
I think that the opposite from death is radiant. And in your book, you have it in English and in Hebrew, you give examples of women who suffered, went to see you. You tell the story from their eyes, from your eyes,
Yes.
and how you balance their hormones in several areas. Can you describe kind of the chapters of the book?
So I don't know if anyone has heard of Suzanne Summers, but she's a wonderful educator in this field. And when I was
She
talking
wrote
to
the
her,
foreword to the book.
Yes, she did. Bless her, bless her. And when I talked to her about the book, she said, look, Prudence, she said, just each chapter make it about a different condition. And I said, that's really great, because if I can help women and men, and this is a women's book. Testosterone for Men is Abe's book for men. That's a wonderful book, Morgenthaler's book for men. But this is Radiant for Women. So the first chapter is menopause, and then perimenopause. Then we have low thyroid, low adrenals. We have, low HGH. So we have all the different conditions where, as we're following along, my real clients, they're in the consult room with us, listening to the woes and the stories of these clients and how they turned their lives around, and then what they're doing next. I mean, what you can do once you feel like you're 35 or 40 and have the wisdom of somebody who is 60 or 50 or 70 or 80, at any age, hormones are very, very helpful. Then it's magic. It is really magic. And I have referred clients to you at that stage to say,
Yes.
how can they, lead a life that's more in alignment with who they really are?
And more people read the book and listen to your lectures and your videos and your programs, both in screens, in English and in Hebrew, including the book, including other programs that you have created worldwide. And the question is, they always ask the same question, how can we work with you?
So I have a center in California called the Hall Center. I see people from all over the world, and it would be really an honor to work with you with your problems. Zoom. Yes,
Yeah.
or if somebody wants to come to California, in person. But Zoom is very effective because I can see someone very close and look at their features very closely. And we have several doctors. We have 3 doctors who do this in the clinic, and I have trained both of them. One of them is my daughter, Dr. Britton, they're incredible physicians.
But it is still possible to work with you
Yes.
using Zoom and invite you to lectures within organization and other unions who really wants to take this hormones balancing and bringing to more and more people and change the world for
Yes.
a better world.
And I would say for men, go to the urologist that is your urologist or your internist and say, I want to have my testosterone level checked. I want to check my DHEAS. That's what the major adrenal hormone.
We will put in the notes
Some
all
of
the tests that we recommend
Excellent.
people to do. And we can share that if you ask your doctor,
Yes.
he will give you all the tests and there will be no problem, including everything.
And we have
And-
doctors.
Exactly.
We had a little hormone center here in Israel where I was training doctors and seeing clients in Israel. And it opened 1 month before COVID, and Israel shut down. So I couldn't enter Israel for 2 years, and we had to close that. But there are people who have good knowledge
Yeah.
in Israel that
But
they can.
and still, I think that the gift of Corona allows people to work through Zoom with you
Yes,
and
yes.
feel that they don't need to travel and still get you or your colleagues, including Beryl, in the U.S., helping
Yes.
them to balance their hormones. So this is a good way to work worldwide while sitting in the U.S. and
Yes.
helping others.
People used to have to come to the United States, and I love my African patients. I love my Asian patients, Europeans. And, I used to think that we were all going to be different, that we were all going to suffer in different ways according to our society, but we don't. It's so universal how this physical suffering happens the same.
Before we end this podcast, I would like you to give us 3 practical advice from you.
Okay, first of all, for your thyroid in order to make really helpful thyroid hormones. Iodine and selenium are important. Okay. Now, the iodine is any place between 2 to 4 milligrams. And every once in a while, somebody's allergic to iodine and they'll itch. So, start with a lower dose. You can get that online. It's called, there is one called iodophor, which is actually quite a high level of iodine. But you can also do Crow's Lugol's drops. You do some drops in water, drink it down. And then the selenium is about 200 micrograms a day. This really helps you to make better thyroid hormone without any other intervention. The second thing is sleep is so important to help the adrenals to function. I love melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone from the pituitary gland, and as we age, it can decrease. It does decrease. So a lot of elderly people, 80, 90-year-olds, they don't have to be elderly, but in terms of a chronological age, that's getting in the upper 10%, then they don't make as much melatonin. They can sleep 3-4 hours a night. So get some melatonin in your pharmacy or online. I like 5 milligrams, 3 milligrams is fine too. Even 10 milligrams is fine. A lot of the reasons why we want to take melatonin, it's an antioxidant for the brain. So it helps the brain to stay vital. Secondly, it's anti-inflammatory. So much of what happens to our body as it ages is it becomes inflamed and becomes old and creaky and it hurts. So it's an antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. Blind women, and they've done, this is a study of 15,000 blind women, have half the incidence of breast cancer as sighted women have, women who can see. And that is due to very high levels of melatonin. So I love melatonin. Get 8 hours of sleep, guys, even 9. Okay, sleep is next. And then, what is the third, Ron? Would you say it's diet? Would you say it's, would you like practical solutions for balancing hormones?
Yeah, probably balancing hormones, because I think that diet is very important. Mm-hmm. Also, exercise is very important, but balance your hormones. Know your levels, know your symptoms, and work with your doctors to balance your hormones. This is the main I think, advice from this podcast. As in consciousness, mindfulness, knowing what's happening when it's happening is of critical importance. So to direct your mindfulness to yourself and to care and to love yourself enough to follow through and to get the lab work done, which is not that easy for everybody, and to then seek care from someone who knows what to do with those hormones. This is important. So it's mindfulness. Okay, I thought that my irritability was due to the fact that I've gained 20 pounds and I don't feel that good about myself. Well, probably both is due to low estrogen and maybe due to low thyroid, okay? And so we sort of attribute, I thought I was tired because I've been so depressed recently, and that's why I'm tired. Or I thought I was tired because my daughter is having a problem. It's like, no, you're tired because your hormones are probably imbalanced, and probably you're depressed, and probably you feel so irritable with your daughter because your hormones. So to bring that mindfulness about yourself, to recognize your symptoms, to actually write them down. Gosh, could we put the questionnaire online? Oh, yes, of course.
We'll put the questionnaire online so you'll be able to actually diagnose.
So we will put the questionnaire
as well
online.
As I could, probably.
We will put the contact at thewholecenter.com. I want to thank you for your time and for your visit in Israel. This podcast will be broadcast also on Screens US, so everybody can see it.
Great.
And I ask you, if you love this podcast, please share it with others. There are many, many people that suffer right now that needs to know about hormones and hormones balancing, that it will be really a gift for them to know about Radiant again and forever. And please just share this podcast as much as you can. And thank you for watching us and listening to us via Spotify, via Apple Podcast and Google Podcast and YouTube and Screens. Thank you so much, Prudence. Thank you, everyone.
So much. Thank you so much.
ביי. טוב חברים, הגענו לסיומו של עוד פרק בפודקאסט, נו מה עכשיו? במידה וקיבלתם ערך מהפרק הזה, עזרו לנו להפיץ את הבשורה. שתפו לפחות חבר אחד שיכול ליהנות מהערך הזה. בכל פרק מצורפות לכם 3 הפרקטיקות עליהן דיברנו בפרק. צאו וישמו, כי להקשיב בלי להתאמן ולממש זה לא ממש עובד. אני הייתי דורון עמיתי ליבשטיין, ונתראה בפרק הבא.